Picture walking through a landscape so vast, so ancient, that the soil beneath your feet seems to hum with the memory of empires lost to time. Imagine standing at the edge of a forgotten river, its waters whispering secrets older than Rome itself. Secrets so monumental that even our greatest historians have barely scratched the surface. Now imagine that these secrets belong to a civilization so immense, so intertwined with the cosmos, that their story was almost erased from history, not by accident, but by design. This was not just a city or a kingdom. This was the erased empire of the Star People, bigger than Rome, more dazzling than Alexandria, and yet forgotten. Forgotten as if swallowed by the night sky from which they supposedly came. In the shadows between worlds, beneath layers of dust, myth, and silence, there lies a narrative that challenges everything we've been told about ancient history. The Star People, as they were called in scattered legends and cryptic texts, weren't merely human, they were something else, something extraordinary. They built colossal cities that mirrored constellations, their architecture a celestial symphony of stone and starlight. Their knowledge of the stars was unparalleled, ways to navigate the heavens that predate even the earliest known astronomers. Tales describe their empires stretching from lush river valleys in what we now call South America, across deserts where not even a blade of grass dares to grow, to islands where the skies themselves seem closer to the earth. But here's the twist. Despite their grandeur, despite their influence, the Star People vanished from recorded memory. Not buried quietly beneath the sands like Troy or Pompeii, but actively scrubbed from the storybooks, replaced by other narratives. So what were they really? And why did they disappear from the annals of history as if someone pressed a cosmic delete button? This might be the strangest thing about the erased empire of the Star People, that they were simultaneously everywhere and nowhere, both monumental and invisible. Their traces don't look like ruins or crumbling temples, but rather like the fingerprints of forgotten knowledge, etched in myths, scattered in star charts, and glimpsed in the artwork of ancient cultures spanning continents. Unlike the proud Romans who left detailed annals, or the Egyptians with their hieroglyphs, the Star People live in the whisper between stories, in what folklorists call liminal spaces. Those mysterious corners where history and legend collide. Folklorists have long wondered about this empire, because its shadows touch civilizations as diverse as the Maya, the Sumerians, and the Polynesians. In 12th century Wales, for example, stories of the men of the sky describe visitors who came down in shining vessels, taught the people advanced agriculture and astronomy, and then vanished without a trace. These stories resemble the Star People legends almost too closely to be mere coincidence. The ancient Maya recorded on stone tablets a people from the stars who gifted them with calendars so precise, they predicted eclipses centuries in advance. Meanwhile, islanders in the South Pacific tell of ancestors who arrived riding on the backs of gigantic birds, claimed knowledge of the heavens, and built stone observatories aligned perfectly with the solstices. Could all this point to a shared source? An empire linked by starbound explorers who spread their wisdom across the globe, left no single written record, yet seeded civilizations that would flourish for millennia. This should be no surprise. It fits a pattern that repeats throughout history. Great powers rise, illuminate the human story, then unexpectedly fade or are erased by newer regimes eager to claim the spotlight. But there's more to this story. What these tales really reveal isn't just a lost empire or the mystery of interstellar travelers. They reveal something deeper about our human need to connect with the cosmos, like ancient therapy sessions designed to remind us of our place among the stars, or nature's version of security cameras recording the comings and goings of beings beyond our understanding. In the oldie world, people saw their rulers not just as kings or emperors, but as divine intermediaries, star-born guides who linked terrestrial life to celestial destiny. The Star People weren't merely conquerors or architects. They were, in essence, the original environmental activists, preaching harmony with the land and the heavens. Their legacy, scattered and fractured, teaches modern societies about balance and cosmic responsibility, lessons that we've mostly forgotten amidst skyscrapers and satellites. So how did such an empire vanish so completely? To answer, we must travel not only through physical landscapes, but through time itself, through epics where history was penned not in ink but in memory and myth, and where silence often spoke louder than words. We must begin with a story, a complete, unabridged tale from the ancient Andes, captured by chroniclers who glimpsed fragments of this empire before it was erased. Imagine the sound of footsteps crunching on stone, the smell of burning sage mingling with crisp mountain air, as a young apprentice named Kiori stands before the high council of the Star Temple. Around him, elder sages traced shimmering maps of stars on polished obsidian, their fingers following invisible lines connecting distant points of light. Kiori's voice trembled as he recited the sacred history. Our ancestors came from the great beyond, the place where stars are born and die. They shaped this world, carved rivers, and painted the night sky with signs for those who would listen. The council nodded, their eyes reflecting galaxies. This story, preserved in the fragments of Quechua folklore, is more than myth. It speaks of a society that understood the heavens as a living library, where every star was a page, every constellation a chapter in the cosmic narrative of life, death, and rebirth. But it also tells of betrayal and loss. The Star People's knowledge was coveted by rival tribes and empires. Jealousy, fear, and the desire for control led to the destruction of their temples and the burning of their sacred texts. The narrative was violently overwritten by conquerors who claimed divine right through different gods and stories. Yet some whispers survived. Catherine Briggs, one of the 20th century's foremost folklorists, documented oral stories that felt like echoes of the Star People across continents. Stories of sky children and star elders who walked among mortals, offering gifts of knowledge and warnings. In the oft-overlooked corners of human memory, these tales serve as ancient social workers, reminding communities to care for each other and the natural world, but also cautioning against hubris and disconnection from the cycles of nature. The erased empire was more than just a galactic myth or a fanciful story. It was a complex system of knowledge, governance, and spirituality. Archaeological hints suggest they mastered early forms of sustainable agriculture, terracing steep mountainsides, rotating crops with precision that modern science is only now beginning to understand. Their societal structure seemed less about conquest and more about stewardship, a balance of power distributed like the stars themselves within constellations. This reveals something deeper about the human experience. Our ancestors' relationship with the unknown was at once reverent and pragmatic. The Star People's stories functioned like medieval social workers, guiding societies to cope with change and uncertainty by grounding them in a shared cosmic order. In a world before written records, myths were survival tools, living knowledge passed from generation to generation, like a fragile thread weaving people to their past and future. Yet beneath this behavior lay a struggle familiar to us all: the tension between remembering and forgetting, inclusion and erasure. The Star People's story was deliberately hidden or lost amid the rise of empires that preferred different origin stories, stories that justified their reigns, their wars, and their goods. History, it turns out, isn't just about what happened. It's about who tells the story and who gets left out. Feel the weight of this loss. How many civilizations' memories have vanished not because they lacked greatness, but because they clashed with dominant powers whose needs and narratives overshadowed them? How many lessons did we fail to learn when we turned our gaze from the stars to our own ambitions? The erased empire asks us these questions in silence, their ruins buried under layers of dust and time. And what did modern culture replace these stories with? In an age ruled by science and skepticism, the Star People became anecdotes or fringe tales, the stuff of sci-fi novels and conspiracy theories. The very notion of advanced star travelers visiting Earth is often relegated to late-night television and internet forums. But perhaps this dismissal is itself a kind of blindness, like turning off the original environmental activists because their message is inconvenient, or ignoring our ancestors' ancient therapy sessions because the language is foreign. The stories tell us something else. Beneath the hustle of modern life, there remains a yearning to connect, to remember that we are part of something larger, something cosmic. The Star People represent a bridge, a reminder that knowledge is more than facts. It's a relationship with the universe itself. As we move forward, keep this in mind, because what was erased can sometimes be recovered, not through dusty scrolls or lost cities, but through the act of remembering, sharing, and honoring the fragments scattered across our collective memory. This is just the beginning of the journey into the erased empire of the Star People. A story bigger than Rome, and yet almost invisible to history. There is much more to uncover. The interplay between myth and power, the echoes in ancient architecture, even the surprising modern parallels that remind us the stars are still guiding us if we dare to look up. Imagine standing beneath an endless canopy of stars, the cold night air brushing your skin as the ancient wind carries whispers of a forgotten age. Somewhere far beyond the horizon, the ruins of massive cities lie concealed beneath earth and jungle, hideouts of a civilization whose reach sprawled over mountains, rivers, and seas, yet whose name vanished from all true histories. This was the erased empire of the Star People, a society not recorded in grand imperial scrolls or glimmering gold artifacts, but encoded instead in fragments of myth and memory, scattered like stardust across the globe. As the night deepens, the question burns brighter than any constellation. What were they really? And how did such a cosmic empire slip silently beyond the veil of human remembrance, as if swallowed whole by the darkness between worlds? This might be the strangest thing about the Star People. Their legacy isn't etched in broken statues or faded scepters, but in the very structure of time and space they once named. Unlike the conquerors who left histories carved in stone glorifying their victories, the Star People embedded their story in the stars themselves, creating not monuments but living maps of the cosmos. Archaeologists have uncovered landscapes designed to reflect celestial alignments, so precise that even modern scientists scratch their heads. Take, for example, the sprawling Andean terraces that stretch across Peru, each layer carefully sculpted not just to hold soil, but to mirror the Milky Way as it arcs overhead, turning agriculture into a cosmic covenant. These stars weren't just distant suns to admire. They were the skeletons of memory, guiding societies through cycles of life and death, of storms and harvests. But the Star People were more than master builders or celestial cartographers. They were the original environmental activists. In a world where nature was often seen as a force to be tamed or exploited, the Star People preached balance. Their myths, preserved in oral traditions from the Inuit in the Arctic to the elders of Polynesia, speak of guardians who taught humanity how to listen to the earth, respect the waters, and live in harmony with the seasons. Imagine the crackle of a sacred fire, the scent of cedar drifting through a coastal village, as an elder recounts the tale of Star Mother, a radiant being descended from the heavens who showed the first fishermen how to read ocean waves like constellations. These were not the stories of conquerors but of caretakers, ancient therapy sessions helping societies cope with change, uncertainty, and the fragility of life on a fragile planet. In 12th century Wales, the chronicles tell us of the men of the sky, beings who arrived in shimmering vessels and gifted the people with knowledge of the stars and healing herbs before vanishing as mysteriously as they came. Folklorist Catherine Briggs noted parallels between these tales and those from the First Nations of North America, where star elders journeyed between worlds, bridging human and cosmic knowledge through song and ritual. These stories were, in essence, nature's version of security cameras, quiet sentinels recording a history that official annals would later erase. What these cross-cultural echoes reveal is an ancient network of wisdom that spanned continents, a knowledge system far removed from the violence and erasure that came with medieval empires and colonial powers. Yet beneath this reverential image lies a story of betrayal and loss. The Star People's celestial knowledge was coveted by earthly kings and rivals intent on controlling both land and minds. Manuscripts burned, temples razed, and traditions suppressed under the banner of new faiths and regimes. The soaring cities, bigger than Rome's, were leveled not by time alone but by intent, as if a universal delete was pressed, wiping away an entire chapter of human potential. This deliberate forgetting reminds us of the fragility of human memory and how deeply intertwined power is with storytelling. History isn't neutral. It's a battleground of whose voices survive and whose are silenced. Let me share with you a glimpse into the Andean heart of this empire's fall, an unabridged tale preserved by native chroniclers whose words echo through centuries. Young Kiwari, an apprentice of the Star Temple, stood trembling before the High Council, their faces illuminated by flickering lamplight. "The stars speak to us," he said, "but the fire consumes our records." His mentor, wise Pachacuti, responded gravely, "The enemies fear our knowledge because it connects us to the great beyond, the boundless universe we serve. They seek to erase us, but in the sky, no fire can scorch the eternal light." That night, as the sacred manuscripts were cast to flames, Kiwari vowed to preserve their wisdom in secret songs and stories, embedding it in the very fabric of the people's memory. It was a battle not just for survival, but for the soul of humanity's connection to the cosmos. This reveals something deeper about the human experience. The tale of the Star People is also our own. We inherit a tension between remembering and forgetting, between sharing knowledge and protecting it, a dance that continues today in our relationship with history and identity. The Star People's erasure was not just physical but psychological. Centuries of denial replaced wonder with skepticism, replaced awe with apathy. Today, their cosmic wisdom has morphed into fragments seen as myth or legend, their star maps dismissed as superstition, their environmental ethos overshadowed by industrial progress. Yet their whisper persists. If we listen between the lines of folklore, ancient calendars, and sacred architecture, we find urges still alive within us to reconnect with the stars and the earth. Look to the South Pacific Islands, where ancestral navigators used the night sky to sail across vast oceans without instruments, guided by a profound memory encoded in song and dance. These voyagers became living constellations themselves, a terrestrial reflection of their celestial origins. Polynesian scholars have been reviving these traditions, reminding the world of a knowledge system that predates GPS. By millennia, proof that the erased empires influence threads through human history in ways we are only beginning to appreciate. In this light, the Star People were not extinct aliens nor distant myths. They were our ancestors, our storytellers, and the keepers of a cosmic covenant we have just begun to honor once more. Yet why did modern civilization struggle to hold onto this wisdom? The answer lies not just in loss, but in transformation. The rise of empire and industrialization brought new worldviews, scientific rationalism, and technological triumph that often dismissed old ways as primitive. The Star People's teachings were sidelined by progress's glare, their sacred connections replaced by screens and satellites. Here, the ancient social workers became forgotten counselors, their messages muffled under layers of concrete and noise. But the stories tell us something else. Beneath the roar of progress, there is still yearning, a deep-rooted desire to feel seen and guided by something greater than ourselves. Consider how ancient myths served as medicinal stories, mirrors reflecting human fears, hopes, and lessons for living in harmony with nature and one another. The Star People's tales functioned like therapeutic rituals, a communal holding space where a people could heal from losses, foresee dangers, and prepare for change. In the modern age, we find new forms of this therapy in mindfulness, environmental activism, and community storytelling, echoes of an ancient impulse to restore connection, balance, and respect to a world spinning faster than it can sustain. So what remains of this erased empire today? Not massive ruins covered in dust, but subtler signs. Star alignments in ancient city plans, cosmic patterns in textile designs, and the enduring oral traditions that shape indigenous knowledge worldwide. Their shadows live in the rhythms of the moon, the flow of river terraces, and the quiet wisdom of elders who still teach that we are children of the stars. This should be no surprise. The Star People's true monument is not stone, but the living legacy of human curiosity and reverence for the cosmos. As we reflect on this vanished empire, we are invited to consider what it means to carry forward such cosmic responsibility. What lessons from the Star People can help us confront today's challenges? Climate change, social fragmentation, and the search for meaning in an increasingly disconnected world. Their story reminds us that knowledge is not merely power but trust, a sacred agreement to care for each other and the earth, to live in balance as part of a greater celestial tapestry. Imagine, then, standing again beneath the night sky, feeling a profound kinship not only with those who walked this earth millennia ago, but with the stars themselves. In a time when the intangible often feels lost, the erased empire of the Star People calls us to remember that we are more than isolated beings. We are threads woven into the infinite fabric of the cosmos, inheritors and stewards of an ancient wisdom that sings quietly from the shadows. The Star People vanished from history's page, not because their light was weak, but because their story was too vast, too profound for any one voice to contain. But their legacy endures in our hearts and our heavens, waiting for those brave enough to seek beyond the known and reclaim a forgotten chapter of our human journey. To honor this, we must listen deeply, to myths, to stars, to the silent urgings within, and become once again custodians of a celestial heritage that is, in truth, our shared birthright. This is your invitation, to look up at the night sky not as strangers, but as descendants of the star people, to ask what ancient dreams rest within your own story, and how you might carry their light forward. Because in preserving these forgotten stories, in telling them again and again, we don't just recover a lost empire, we rediscover ourselves.